So good afternoon. My name is Eric Brooks. I'm the Director of Marketing Communications for Novir. We're a Milwaukee-based biotechnology company that provides early detection for life-threatening infections. At this point in our history, that means COVID-19. So which brings us to our panel presentation today and how COVID testing can help reopen the economy and your business. And you hopefully saw from the intro just that obviously businesses across the country are increasingly seeing testing as critical to their strategy to reopen and stay open safely and responsibly during the pandemic. In this session, you'll hear how Novir is working with a lot of these businesses of all sizes, including Hyatt hotels, to deliver COVID-19 testing that is rapid, efficient, and affordable, providing peace of mind for businesses, owners, and their employees, increasing customer confidence, slowing the spread of the virus, and reducing costly downtime. You'll learn more about how this added safety measure can work for your business as well. So before we go any further, I want to thank Jack Lavin, Jan Costner, Marianne Floriano from the Chicagoland Chamber for adding this to the agenda. And so your members can hear about a topic we know is on their minds. We know it's on minds of so many across the region, the state, the country, and the world for that matter. So thank you for having us today. I also want to thank today's panelists, and you'll hear from them shortly. Frank Lavey from Hyatt Hotels, Nadder, Sahar, MPE-INC, and Novir, Gregg Bach from the University School of Milwaukee. Also joining us today is Peter Klug from Novir. So before we dive into questions, I want to encourage everyone checking out this presentation to visit the Novir booth in the exhibit hall when you have time, not right now, but after this presentation, hopefully, where you can learn more about Novir and the solutions we're offering for businesses through Reed Webster, our senior program sales director. So on to the panel. Let's start with an introduction of today's panelists and their experience so far with testing. Before we dive into that, just lastly about chat. We'll be taking questions throughout this panel as well. So if you have one and you're live, please do not hesitate to put it in the chat. That will be the way we'll take questions and answers. I will monitor that and make sure they're going and getting answered as best we can. We'll also could follow up if needed as well. But with the panel, I'm going to start with Novir and Peter Klug. So Peter, please introduce yourself. Tell us what Novir does, who we are, and what we do to deliver testing for businesses, schools, and other customers. So Peter, good afternoon, and we'll get to the other gentleman here shortly. So Peter, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. So Novir is a relatively new on the scene and born out of COVID, and we are an end-to-end testing and screening solutions company. So what we do for manufacturers or schools or offices, really anybody that wants to reopen safely, is put together a customized end-to-end program that really starts with a software platform that registers everybody in your organization that needs to get tested, a comprehensive risk analysis that slots what that testing protocol should look like, and then execution of the actual tests on site or at one of our sites, and then giving results. Importantly, we believe in rapid testing. We also do PCR lab-based testing, but we believe in giving results as quickly as possible. So getting results into the hands of those that are tested in 15 minutes, and sort of tying that full end-to-end solution together so that you can feel safe and that everybody in the organization can feel like the organization is taking the steps that are required in order to be safe and open safely. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thanks, Peter. And we've got three guests, and again, I thank you for joining us, talking about their end-to-end solutions here and how it's worked for them. And I'm going to go through them now. So I'll start with Nadder from MPE-INC, which is also the same company Novir will be soon producing its own branded antibody test and antigen test through. But I know they've been testing with Novir as a full-service program since last summer. So Nadder, thanks for joining us. Why don't you quickly summarize kind of what MPE-INC in Milwaukee has done as a manufacturer and kind of what you've seen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So just a quick background on MPE. We are a contract manufacturer of medical devices. So we make ventilators and other medical products that are required to deal with the COVID crisis. So early on, when there was a national shutdown, we're in Wisconsin, there was a statewide shutdown in Wisconsin, except for essential businesses. And we were deemed to be essential because we had to keep producing these products for our customers and for hospitals. So, early on in the pandemic, especially, there was a great deal of fear, and we were asking our employees to come in to work and continue to manufacture these products. We had no stay-at-home option to manufacture these products, obviously. So it was a big ask of our employees. We actually had letters for every employee deeming them able to come into work to serve an essential business in case they were stopped by authorities. And for that ask, we thought it was really important to ensure to them that we were taking the pandemic seriously and their safety seriously, and also to alleviate their concerns. Early in the pandemic, the prevalence was actually lower than it is now, but there was a lot of uncertainty and concern about it. So we work with Novir. We were looking for a way to show our employees what the prevalence is, to find a way to gate COVID from coming in the doors, and to do it in an efficient way. We couldn't effectively send everyone out for PCR testing and mandate that they do it. So we worked with Novir to create a program in-house, and they came in, evaluated our workforce, evaluated our layout and workflow in the building, and created a customized program to test everyone in the building. And it was an optional program, but almost everyone participated because everyone wanted to know where they stood and collectively contribute to the safety of all employees. So it was it was seamless. As a manufacturer, we're mindful of downtime. The way that the plan was rolled out and the process was handled introduced very little downtime for our employees, and still gave them the feeling that we were looking out for them and that they understood what the situation was inside the building.
Thanks, Nadder. We'll dive more into that too in your experience here shortly, but thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna go next to Gregg Bach, and a totally different type of customer, right? But schools, and as with University School of Milwaukee, Novir, I believe, is testing about 15 different schools right now or more in the Milwaukee area, and more districts, public and private, are looking at this as less of an option and more of a requirement to reopen and stay open safely. But Gregg, welcome. And why don't you tell us a bit about your story and about your situation?
Yeah, thanks, Erik. It's good to be here. Hello to everybody. As Erik said, my name is Gregg Bach. I'm the assistant head of school, University School of Milwaukee. University School is an independent private school minutes north of downtown Milwaukee on a 125-acre campus. Have about 1,100 students and 270 employees. So the school operates very much like a small business. The school does not get any funds from any government sources. So we really depend on enrollment to drive the budget of the school. And so when everything shut down, gosh, almost a year ago, March 13th, our number one goal was, how do we get back up and running? Again, because our enrollment is the lifeblood of the school, and every school had its own unique challenges. Ours was, how do we open in August? And so we worked very hard to put together a plan to open school, and we did in August. Testing was always there in the back of our minds and was part of our plan. And Peter Klug, an old friend, called me, I remember, early in August to check in and said, hey, Gregg, can we help the school with testing? At that time, testing was expensive, and we had a lot of other things that we were working on. And we were poking around at different labs around the country, and we were able to secure some rapid tests. And we thought, hey, we could do this. We could do this ourselves. We've got athletic trainers. We've got nurses on staff. So we got these shipments of these tests in. But quickly we realized that we ran into some problems because we didn't have all the workflow taken care of. The CDC was changing requirements. You had to report. We didn't have the technology. So I got on the phone and said, hey, Peter, it's Gregg again. Help us. We need help. We've got this equipment, and I think we're interested in working with you to help us with our testing. And so that was, again, the start of our partnership. And quite frankly, Novir has helped us in two major ways. One was we wanted to test all of our students and faculty and staff after major vacations. So we wanted to put together an asymptomatic testing program. And so we've been testing 1,200 plus people after vacations, another one coming up here after our spring break in March. And that has been helpful. The second area is again, business operations and interruption of those operations in the school. The quarantining process has caused all kinds of problems for us, and it disrupts everything. If one teacher or employee is not feeling well or has what they might be a cold, they'd have to go home, maybe go find a PCR test somewhere. Sometimes 3, 5 days, 6 days, we'd wait for those results, and that affected our operations. And every time we had to quarantine an employee, especially teachers, it was a problem. So then, we worked to solve that problem by putting up kind of a pop-up testing center on our campus. And so that is a center that is open every day for 2 hours. And we can send students, we can send family members, we can send employees over there, and we can get kind of quick results and get people back to school and work as soon as possible. And we've been offering 3 different tests there. We've been offering the rapid test, we've been offering the PCR test, and we've been offering an antibody test. And we use it for our athletic teams, for example. We had to send the whole basketball team over there. They wouldn't have been able to play in the playoffs had we not had the testing center there to test everybody last week. So it's been an absolutely terrific partnership and has helped us keep our business operations moving.
How'd they do in the playoffs, by the way?
The hockey team did pretty well. The basketball team, not so well.
Well, thanks for sharing your story. And that was, obviously a unique employer as well. The pop-up idea as well, that's been successful too. So let's move on to a completely different employer and a very large one, and obviously a worldwide one. So Frank Lavey, thank you for joining us today from Hyatt Hotels. I appreciate that. I wonder if you could hit on 2 things. I know it's a relatively new relationship with Novir, but what are we doing currently? And I know we're doing a lot around your corporate headquarters and so on. And also, what are you looking to do around hotels and events? I know it's kind of fairly different areas. I wonder if you could talk about kind of what you're doing, what you're looking to do as well. But again, thank you for joining us.
No, pleasure. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll touch on a couple of different areas. So again, Frank Lavey, I'm the Senior VP of Global Operations for Hyatt. We're Chicago-based. I'm sure most of you are familiar with us, but we are a multinational hotel company. We started really a year ago. It's amazing how much we've learned, but my day job is operating hotels. But when this came about, we obviously can hit to our overall business level. So I was charged with our COVID recovery task force, and so we broke it into basically 3 areas. One was the recovery of initially reacting to the fall in our business and shoring up our operations to again make sure that we were not bleeding money everywhere. We closed at one point. We had about 1/3 of our hotels closed globally. And we've got just about 1,000 hotels. So it was a pretty significant event. But the next stage was really on the restart. So in that interim, we had to develop all of our revised cleaning protocols. Again, guests and our staff confidence in how clean our buildings were. And as you can imagine, there was so much paranoia around it. Surface transmission and all the. We dove into all the things around electrostatic spraying and making sure that our things were clean and social distancing. So we had to put all of those in place, rather quickly. And then we started to see in the summer last year, we started to see some hotels start to reopen and extended in the fall. We've seen a big return on the leisure side of our business. So a lot of our select service properties where people can drive to, they obviously did very well, but we've taken a really big hit on the corporate event side, corporate business travel, conventions, social gatherings. and we're going to be digging out for a while. So the next phase was then really, we called it reimagination. What does our business look like on the back end of the pandemic? How do we prepare for the return of the travelers? And most industry analysts will agree that we're predicting that we'll start to see pretty strong recovery mid-summer. Our advanced bookings are looking very strong, and we're actually starting to see some group business come back to us. So that really prompted the need for finding a good and reliable testing partner. We were sitting back watching and waiting. We knew that there were going to be an abundance of rapid antigen tests that would come to market, and because of the price point, it was obviously, with the volumes that we're going to be looking at testing, that was really a very attractive path for us. So we're looking at as you get on two fronts. We are right now, because our business levels are still considerably lower than we've experienced in the past, and we would certainly like to. We're focused on getting our staff back to work, building their confidence. With testing, we're even having, building a campaign around vaccinations, but primarily it's getting people back to work and creating a safe and secure environment for everybody. So we had engaged with Novir, and we did an event at our corporate office actually 2 weeks ago today. So we had everybody that came in was given an antigen test and an antibody test, and so it was really an effort to show how seamless the process was, how quickly the results were turned, and it was like a great day because at one point we had 20 in that building. And through unfortunately having to do some furloughs last year, we're down to about 1,500 people. But we've had the office open. We're not at all mandating or encouraging people to come in, but it's there if they want to. So we wanted to demonstrate what it would look like on a normal day returning to work, and it was really great because we've all been on video calls like this. But a lot of us haven't seen each other for a year, so we were there the day of the test, and it went great, by the way. But it was so rewarding to see people were waiting around for their test to come back on the app, and then when they got it, they'd go hug somebody. So it was, and that demonstrates the power of really the confidence that the testing will build, and if you're doing it on a frequent basis, and again building that level of confidence. And now we hope to extend that to our hotels, where they're going to be, in the near future, welcoming back large numbers of people. So as I said, be it for conferences, conventions, large social events, but we'll be able to, use Novir's expertise to help us test people prior to coming to an event, and show on the app that they have a pass for that day. So that's it's kind of a real quick run through, but that's where we are in the here and the now.
Well, thank you. That's a great anecdote about the hugging piece. I Zoom calls got old for me probably about 9 months ago, I think. So, but a quick question: were you impressed with how the seamlessness, the efficiency, how did that testing day go, or those days go for the corporate employees? And you mentioned the app and the role that plays, but how did that go in your mind?
It went great. We had obviously discussed the logistics with the Novir team and with our event specialist prior to. So and we met the day before to kind of walk through how it would work. But it was good. People were kept at a safe distance. People moved through the process very quickly. They've been given instructions prior to coming in how to download the app and register for testing. So it was, really it was seamless. And it was actually good because we had only one false positive, which, he was provided a PCR test, which turned out to be negative. But the good news was it gave us the opportunity to run through the drill of, if there is a positive test that comes back, how do we, safely and securely remove that person, and discreetly, by the way, remove that person from the building. And it was done that way. So it was a really great drill for us, and kind of a peek at what we'll be doing in the future.
Thank you. And same question for you, Gregg. You're obviously we're testing quite a few as far as numbers with the school, student, staff, etc. Has it been a pretty seamless process? What does it look like and feel like on testing day? the efficiency piece.
Yeah, no, good question. I mean, it takes a team effort. Matter of fact, we had our operations meeting this morning for our March testing date because we're trying to shrink that down from 2 days to 1 day to try to get 1,200 people tested in 1 day instead of 2. And so we had our meeting this morning. So it's a coordinated effort between our staff and then the Novir staff, and each better and better. And again, the workflow, the willingness to respond. Do we need? Hey, might need more than 3 lanes to do the testing. Maybe we need 4 or 5 lanes. Novir says, "Yep, we can do that." Do we need to add another hour? Can we do more? Test more per 10-minute block? Yes, we can do that. So it's always yes. We can do it. We can work within your situation, your culture, and again, the software. I've seen that change and develop over time too. I mean, it's quick results, as Frank said. The app is great. You've got a dashboard there with all your information, so we can go back and look at the history of the testing. Easy to use, and so yeah, it's been a good team effort, and each time we're getting better.
Great, thank you. I want to take a quick step back and I have a question for Peter. And just in general, I wonder if you could talk just about hit highly on the 3 different types of tests are and the role for that comprehensive approach. But also, why is testing important even during, and especially during the vaccine rollout? I wonder just the role for testing overall as we go into 2021 and the different type of tests and why we encourage that comprehensive approach. Peter, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about testing protocols and what makes a good test protocol. So the first step is really analyzing your risk. What testing does a wonderful job of doing is give data and help mitigate risk. So really it helps you to gather data. So rapid antibody tests are a great tool for gathering data. So rapid antibody tests let you look back in time from 7 days ago back to the start of the pandemic. Some studies suggest that antibodies still persist after 8 or 9 months. So that rapid antibody test gets you quick results, but lets you look back in time, which everybody, first of all, has a natural curiosity about. Oh, I think I was sick sometime last March. I wonder if it was COVID or something else. Or, oh, my partner or spouse had it, but I never tested positive. Maybe I had it. And then 2, from an organizational point of view, it gives you a really good sense of your prevalence within your organization. So we've had prevalences anywhere from 5 or 8% on the low end to 25, 30% on the high end, prevalence within the organization over the course of the pandemic. Then the next step in testing is really setting a pace and protocol for your rapid antigen testing, supplemented by PCR testing. So how frequently do I want to test? Under what circumstances? We usually suggest some sort of regular asymptomatic testing protocol. So I'm going to test when everybody's coming, right before everybody comes back to work or school from a vacation or from a long layoff from the workplace. And then we're going to set up some sort of testing to look at people over time. So that could be testing a percentage of the population every week or every 2 weeks. It could be include track and trace and testing those that are either under quarantine or in close contact, and trying to get them out of quarantine a little bit quicker or cleared from close contact. So there's that ongoing piece, which rapid antigen does a really nice job of screening. And then each time there's a positive, as Frank alluded to, there's a secondary test, which is the PCR test, which is more expensive and takes longer to get results, 24 to 48 hours in our case. But then that gives you a definitive result whether somebody was had the virus currently or not. So that's really the combination of testing protocol we use. And then we work with the organization to understand, what does that mean? Okay, what is your quarantine period? How do we communicate that? What does a positive test mean? What should you do once you get a positive rapid test until you get the definitive answer on the PCR? All those sorts of things, and really have a seamless process with the school, the manufacturer, or the employer to say this is what it all means, and give some guidance to those that are affected.
But there's a role for this, even with the vaccine, maybe especially with the vaccine, right?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So those that get a vaccine, well, let me start at the beginning. The first wave of testing, somewhere between 40 and 60% of healthcare workers opted in for the vaccine. So that's well short of what will give us herd immunity, according to Dr. Fauci. I'm not sure where we're at with this current phase. I think the numbers are still being tallied in terms of adoption. But my guess is it's going to be less than 60% that are eligible, that are willing to take the vaccine at this point. So that's a big portion of your population that's still not vaccinated, regardless of the industry or workplace that you're in. So testing plays a role for those that aren't vaccinated, for sure. So in combination with vaccines, testing does a really nice job of keeping that other population safe. And then there's some interesting data emerging from, you can obviously get a vaccine and see that antibodies show up. When do they show up? There's some new evidence that says maybe they show up right after the first shot, maybe 2 weeks after the first vaccine for those that are two shot vaccines. And you can actually see that with a rapid antibody test. It certainly gave me great peace of mind to see after I got my vaccine that I had antibodies, and that made me feel protected and safe. So I don't think anybody's talking about this being sort of over by the end of the summer. I think we can together manage it by the end of the summer or by the end of the year in a much more effective way. And testing really goes hand in hand with vaccines and other strategies in order to keep us all safe as we sort of come out of this thing.
Similar question. Thank you, Peter. I'll quickly go around the room here. I assume that your employers see a role for this. It's not just today, tomorrow, but well into 2021. I'll start with you, Frank. I mean, obviously you're looking at, you just talked about it, you've got idea, and there's some things maybe rolling out to come here. So I wonder how long you see potentially a need for testing in your organization, as big as it is.
Yeah, I mean, so the recovery path that we're looking, as I mentioned before, in the second half of the year, we'll see a strong return of the leisure travelers. I don't know that we're going to require testing for them, nor can we. But in order to, again, provide them the assurances, we'll continue to test our colleagues in all of our properties. But then moving forward, as we get back into the larger group business, that's going to be where we really want to assure people that we have a process in place that assures that you can bring, whether it's 300 people or 3,000 people together, and really create as safe an environment as possible by having, a test within, 48 or 24 hours of arrival at the event. So, it's good because not only do we have in this case a testing platform, but also a tracking platform as well. Demonstrate that you've had a negative test within whatever time period it is that you specify. So we anticipate, I mean, at least all the way through 2022 and probably beyond. I mean, the only thing we bear in mind is that, people have short memories, but this is a pandemic like none of us have experienced and hopefully never experience again, but it's going to be seared into people's brains. And I think there are areas, not just in the hospitality industry, where people are going to be looking at, ensuring that folks around them have been tested, but it's, airports and, concert venues, sporting venues. So it's going to be a really important tool to have for all of us. Again, not just the hospitality industry.
I wonder what your insights are. I was going to ask this from a Chicago perspective and say, when can we go to a Cubs game again? When can we go to a Brewers game again? I mean, I know they're looking at limited capacity now, so I think it's starting in April, I think, in Milwaukee. But I long for those days, right, when you can, or have, in your case, a large conference or, that kind of thing, hang out by the pool with Africa. So that's to be determined, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is to be determined, but I think that's the good news with Novir is that, you not only have the testing platform, but the tracking platform is just as critical so that you can demonstrate that people have actually been tested, and that, you're not inviting people that are contagious into, whether it's a gathering of 20 people or the Cubs or Brewers game.
I wonder, Greg, if you see a role for testing into next school year. I know I've talked to one of our customers that I think absolutely sees that could be a possibility into next fall and beyond. I wonder if you thought about that.
Yeah, we're thinking about that. The school staff becomes eligible for vaccinations in Wisconsin on March 1st. So that's our next goal, is to get all the staff vaccinated, and we look like we're going to get close to 78%, hopefully by after spring break. So we're going to continue to work on that. But we don't have any information on students. We have families who really don't want to send children back until their family is vaccinated, and so we're still going to have these sports teams. We're still going to have athletic competitions and other events with families. So depending on what happens with vaccinations with children, I see that there will be testing in our future, probably for sure into the first semester.
And Nadder, I would say the same question for you. And as a medium-sized employer, I'd call. I think it's 100, 150 employees at MPE-INC. I wonder if they see a value for this going forward. And I will say, I'll also ask this way: what role in general? I would suspect that testing is incredibly important for an employer of your size or smaller, in that a few cases could shut you down. I just talk about the value in general and the value going forward.
Yeah, that's always been our concern. As a smaller employer, we have about 200 employees, but there's different
200.
functional areas inside the company. And for instance, our assembly area, the people there generally all work together and have a function. Same thing with our metal forming areas. So if we had an infection spread through one area, it could effectively shut down that entire capability. That has always been a fear of ours. We've had a risk mitigation plan, but the reality is we can't separate these employees in an effective way and still manufacture these products. So testing is critical to that. And looking forward, I don't think we believe this is over. It's an evolving situation. We know there's people that don't want the vaccine. We know that children aren't eligible for the vaccine yet, and we know that there's variants emerging in this country. So the road ahead to us is unclear, and testing, we believe, is a way to continue to mitigate risk.
Thank you. I'll remind people, about 15 minutes left here, and if anyone has a question, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll try and get to it during this call. So obviously, again, Reed is at our booth, and we'll be at our booth the next couple days to further dive into this for your situation, ask more questions there. Our website has more information, etc. So it's novirusa.com. I want to ask a question about to each of you about the reaction. You hit on a little bit, and that example from Frank about employees being excited to see each other again. But how have employees, in your case, reacted to your program? And we've heard some words about peace of mind, and there's certainly a business case for the bottom line and for keeping operations going, but there's a human case here too, right? I wonder if you could talk about that. Maybe I'll start with Frank, just kind of a little bit more on what you talked about earlier, with just that, how this is a strategy to show that you care about your people.
Yeah, and we're just getting rolling with this, Eric. So it's sorry, my phone started ringing.
No worries.
But we're just getting underway, and the places where we've talked about it and even shown it, the colleagues are really generally very excited. They're anxious to get back to work, and so anything that we can do that's going to help, again, build confidence to get travelers back into our properties, and also for our colleagues and staff to feel safe when they're coming back to work. So they're all for it. Again, we even had to kind of do the litmus test with our legal team on properties where we have a strong union presence, and to date it has not been an issue whatsoever. So I think all of our teams, and this is globally, by the way, that they will welcome it wholeheartedly. If you look at our properties in Asia Pacific, I mean, they were first into this, and they've had the strongest recovery, and they have testing protocols in place at all of our hotels, and or I shouldn't say all, excuse me, I'd say 90%. And again, the staff there welcomes it.
Nadder, same question for you. I wonder, you got tested as well. I mean, you're part of that protocol.
Yeah.
Just wonder what has been generally the employee reaction. I assume they've got to be encouraged that their employer feels enough to do this for them and offer this.
Yeah, it really, I think, changed how our employees viewed our reaction to the pandemic. We were always taking precautions, but it was common precautions about encouraging social distancing, masking. Once we brought testing on site, that was a differentiator. They didn't know other companies that were doing that, and it really showed our commitment. And I will say, even going through the process changed the perception of doubters. We heard through the grapevine that there were some conspiracy theorists in the building that said, "You're not getting tested, are you? They're going to microchip you," and just off the wall theories like that. But once the testing was on site and people saw how it was done, and it's done right in front of them, they get an instant result. That changed the perception, and even the doubters turned around. We actually surveyed our employees before and after testing, to get their sense of what they thought about it. The survey before testing was very positive. Most people were in favor of it, excited by it. But after testing, the response was nearly unanimous that everyone thought it was a good thing to be done here.
Nice. Same question for you, Gregg. And I know I'm married to a teacher, adult education teacher, and a member of the South Milwaukee School Board. I've heard locally in my city about concerns about reopening schools, keeping them open, concerns from teachers about absolutely valid concerns. I wonder, what has been your experience? I can imagine your staff has been very appreciative that you're doing this and taking this as seriously as you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's right. You're right, Erik. It's a national issue, right? It was all over the headlines. Open the schools, get the teachers back, and a lot of other places, people have still been working at home. A lot of other businesses still working at home, but the goal was to get the kids back, and so teachers, rightfully so, were nervous. They were very nervous at the beginning of the year. I mean, we gave our families two options. They could either be in person or they could be virtual. And, I think it was about, at the beginning of the year, it was about 88% of the families chose in person. And now that number has gone up to about 93 or 94%. And in part, I think people teachers and students and parents are feeling safer because of the protocols, and testing is a big part of that. And, when you're doing asymptomatic testing, and when you can kind of hopefully catch some things before the school opens, people appreciate that. People feel safer. So where there was a ton of anxiety in August with teachers and families, there's still some of that, but it has definitely gone down, and having safety protocols like testing as part of your procedures, your operations, makes a big difference and has helped that.
Nice. I want to ask the question that's always in everyone's minds. What does it cost? Can I afford it? You've heard that question a million times, Peter. I wonder if you could talk about that. I'm not going to ask each one of you what you spent, don't worry. But the idea being it's customizable, and I know the answer always is it depends. But I wonder, Peter, if you'd expand on that a bit to give maybe people a ballpark, and especially differentiating between just the people who sell tests and the people like Novir that provide these service. And there's really a big difference there. But I wonder if you could talk about that. And then, Gregg, after that, I do want you to hit on the how you paid for it piece, because I think your story is a good illustration, not just for schools, but for anyone who has a self-insurance plan for health. So first, I'll start with Peter. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, we've seen a variety of ways to pay for the tests, right? So business interruption is really expensive. So anything you can do to avoid business interruption is a source for funds. For schools specifically, the CARES Act has a few grants, ESSER and GEAR grants, and a few more that are coming with the next round of funding. That testing is absolutely right down the middle in terms of what those funds are meant for. and what those funds are approved for usage in schools. So schools has a really straightforward mechanism to fund the test. And then I really think it's about how do you provide value for the business you're driving. All of these are business decisions, right? So testing in a retail environment, if you're going to a local pharmacy to get a test or something like this, if it's not free, it's maybe $100 plus for a rapid test and maybe 150 for a PCR test. We bring those solutions on people's campuses and do it at a much more cost-effective price than what you could do just sending people out to a private company to get tested. And it's really based on the size and scope of the testing program. So like anything, it's all customized. If you have a budget, we'll give you the best bang for the buck within that budget. And if you need suggestions, we'll tell you what other folks in different industries or your industry are doing in terms of frequency and protocol and what that means for your budget. So the answer is it depends. But it really is something that can be attainable.
Well, thank you. And again, I'll remind people you can ask some of those more detailed questions in the exhibit area. Reed is there, I believe, right now from our team, but also through one-on-one interactions with our team through our website, etc. Gregg, I'd like you to talk. I don't need a number, nor am I going to ask for one, but can you talk about how you paid for yours and through your insurance? I thought that was an intriguing way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we kind of operate as a small business, and all of you know that health insurance costs each year fluctuate, and you never know sometimes what your costs are going to be. And we have a self-insured plan, so like many businesses, we have reserve funds and contingencies for all kinds of different things, and so we have a health insurance reserve fund. So that we can use depending on the insurance year that we have. And so thankfully we had that fund, because when we started working with Novir and put together our testing protocol and looked at an unanticipated cost, we've got to get the funds somewhere. So our reserve fund for our self-insured health program basically equaled what it was going to cost for our testing program. So we were able to use that reserve fund for the testing program, and that worked out really well for us.
And thank you for that. And Frank and Nadder, again, I'm not going to ask you for what you spent, nor need to share, but I wonder if you could just talk about the idea, though, of certainly it's not a cost, there's no object effort, I get that, but just the idea of the value proposition and just the need to understand this is going to cost some money, we need to do this, obviously as affordably as possible. I wonder if you could just talk about how you've approached the funding of this in general. Frank, why don't you go first?
Yeah, thank you. So as far as the cost of the meter is still running, we don't know what that's going to be, but we do view it as, this is an investment in our people. Their mental well-being is just as important as their physical well-being. So, again, providing those safeguards and assurances is just something that we can't afford not to do. So, again, we're at, as I mentioned, the recovery phase for our business. So we're particularly here in North America, we're just starting to awaken now. By mid-year, we should be operating at a pretty good clip. And that's where, again, we will need to have, widely available testing and tracking solutions. And so we're fortunate that, we've now partnered with Novir, and I think we have a great system in place. So we can sell this to people up front, not just our colleagues as they're starting to come back to work, but for others as well. It's time to come back. And when you do, rest assured that it's as safe an environment as we can provide. So again, it's going to be funded through our office. There are some cases, and it varies state by state, where you can, go through the insurance under the peace of mind process, but that's usually for a one-off and not if you're doing regular testing. But it's going to be part of the cost of doing business.
Same for you, Nadder, I suspect. Not that you have a ton of insight into the cost, but I assume that's how it's being viewed at MPE and how it was viewed.
Yeah, we viewed the cost as being well worth it. for our employees' sake, to make them feel safe and create the right culture and environment, that was really important and worth it in itself. But even from a business perspective, reducing the risk of a spread that could cause a line down and basically bring our manufacturing process to a halt, as well as reducing absenteeism. We have a policy of, if someone has to be out due to COVID exposure, we take care of them. And, we were seeing more of that sort of absenteeism prior to testing than after. So I think, culturally, the investment was worth it, but I think there was actually a business ROI as well.
So there's a cost to not doing it, right? Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, gentlemen, thank you. We're about at time here, so I think it's been a really good conversation. I appreciate your feedback. Last round, does anyone want to add anything before we sign off here? Here's an opportunity if you'd like to say anything more that we didn't hit on, but I appreciate the wide-ranging conversation.
I would just add, Eric, we've obviously, since it started, we've been reaching out. We're hotel operators, so we're way outside of our zone of expertise. So we've been talking to, medical professionals, particularly epidemiologists. And so we have a monthly call that's arranged by Tom Pritzker, who's our chairman of the board. And we had the monthly call today with Sir John Bell, who is the head of medicine at Oxford University. And depending on what month you're in, sometimes that you leave the call very optimistic. Sometimes, today was great because he really did talk about not just the vaccines that are in play, but those that are coming to market. But he did hit on the testing element, and that was very encouraging. He said, this is going to be something that is going to be with us for the foreseeable future. And he talked about rapid antigen testing, lateral flow testing, and so it was encouraging to hear somebody at that level kind of validate what we're pursuing. So I just thought I would share that with the group.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Good. Well, again, Nadder, Frank, Gregg, Peter, thank you for joining us today. And anyone watching, again, please check out the Novir booth, and also feel free to contact us through our website. There's plenty of ways to get in touch with our team and Reed Webster specifically. But honestly, our whole team is on there. So again, thank you for sharing your stories. I think it's important people hear this. And the validation piece is important. I think it's very appreciated on our end, and I thank you for what you're doing to keep your employees, your guests, your attendees, your customers safe. So with that, we'll conclude the call here. And again, have a good rest of your afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Nadder. Appreciate it.